Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into fresh NHL predictions, so let's get right into it.
This matchup between St. Louis and Vegas, scheduled for January 2nd, clearly leans toward the visitors according to the betting market. St. Louis is priced around $3.10 to win. The draw sits near $4.10, while Vegas comes in as the favorite at about $2.08. In probability terms, that's roughly 31% for the Blues, 23% for overtime, and 46% for the Golden Knights. Based on that balance, the most logical play here is Vegas to win, with an added lean toward the under 5.5 goals. If we look at where these teams stand right now, the gap is noticeable. St. Louis is stuck near the bottom of the league with just 15 wins through 40 games. They've already allowed 137 goals this season, which is one of the worst defensive records in the NHL. Vegas, meanwhile, is much more stable. They're hovering around the top 10, and even though they're not at peak form, they remain far more structured and consistent over 60 minutes. That defensive difference really shapes how this game is likely to unfold. St. Louis struggles badly when pressured early, especially after turnovers in the neutral zone. They often start games cautiously, but that caution turns into passive hockey, and stronger teams take advantage. Vegas is exactly that type of opponent. The Golden Knights tend to push the pace early, play north-south, and spend long stretches in the offensive zone. That usually forces St. Louis into defensive breakdowns rather than open high-tempo hockey. The injury situation only adds to that imbalance. St. Louis is missing several important pieces, particularly on the blue line. Torrey Krug remains unavailable, and without his puck-moving ability, the first pass out of the zone becomes a real problem. Pius Suter's absence reduces depth down the middle, and the overall rotation looks thin. With limited healthy options, St. Louis is forced to lean on players who are better suited for sheltered minutes, not shutdown roles against a team like Vegas. Vegas isn't perfectly healthy either, but their system holds up better when key players are missing. They rely less on individual creativity and more on structure, spacing, and disciplined defensive reads. That allows them to control games even without turning them into shootouts. Instead of trading chances, Vegas is comfortable slowing things down once they get a lead, protecting the slot and keeping shots to the outside. That's why the total matters here. On paper, St. Louis's defensive numbers might suggest a high-scoring game, but in reality, Vegas doesn't need to push this matchup into chaos. They're more likely to score first, manage the pace, and grind the game down. That scenario strongly favors an under 5.5 outcome, especially if St. Louis struggles to generate sustained offense. So, when you put everything together, the standings, the goal differential, the tactical mismatch, and the injury situation, the picture stays consistent. Vegas holds the edge in structure, discipline, and overall game control. The recommended approach is a straight win for the Golden Knights at 2.08, with added value on the under 5.5 goals. It's not about flash or blowouts here. It's about Vegas doing just enough and doing it efficiently.
Let's break down Florida versus the New York Rangers. According to the bookmakers, Florida are slight home favorites here. You're getting odds just over 2 on the Panthers, while the Rangers are priced close to 3. And that gap actually makes sense when you look at the situation. Florida come into this game in a better position overall. After 39 games, the Panthers sit 4th in their division with 45 points. They're playing at home at Amerant Bank Arena, and that's a big deal. Florida are a much more efficient team on their own ice. They skate faster, forecheck harder, and convert more chances with the crowd behind them. New York, meanwhile, are chasing the playoff line. They're 6th in the Metropolitan Division with 43 points and coming off a brutal 6-3 loss to Washington on December 31st. That game exposed serious defensive issues. Even strong efforts from Artemi Panarin and Adam Fox weren't enough to stop the collapse. Form-wise, the edge clearly goes to Florida. Over their last 10 games, the Panthers have won 6 and kept a positive goal difference. Sergei Bobrovsky has been solid in net, allowing under 3 goals per game on the season, and Florida's defensive structure looks disciplined and physical. The Rangers have lost 4 of their last 6. On the road, their offense becomes far less dangerous, especially against top defensive teams. Their average scoring away from home drops noticeably, and against teams like Florida, clean chances are hard to come by. This matchup is also about style. Florida play heavy, aggressive hockey. Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett constantly pressure defenders, force turnovers, and win battles along the boards. That physical approach has worked well against New York in recent meetings, especially in Sunrise, where the Rangers haven't won in their last 4 visits. Tactically, Florida have the advantage. They control possession in the offensive zone, run one of the league's best power plays, and do a great job closing down the wings. The Rangers rely heavily on counterattacks through Panarin, but Florida are excellent at neutralizing that space. So what's the best betting angle here? The main pick is Florida to win. At odds just over 2, the value is clearly on the home side. If you want a safer option, Florida draw no bet works well. For totals, Florida team total over 2.5 is also worth a look. Final score prediction, Florida wins 3-2. Home ice, better form, and stronger structure. That's the difference in this matchup.
Let's talk about Vancouver versus Seattle. According to the bookmakers, this game is priced very evenly. Vancouver at home are around 2.35. Seattle are just slightly higher, around 2.6. And honestly, that creates a really interesting value spot, because right now, Vancouver look like the better team. The Canucks come into this game in strong form. They've won 4 of their last 5, scoring consistently and not falling apart defensively. Yes, they had a rough loss against Philadelphia, but before that, they beat Seattle on the road, handled San Jose, and won tough games against strong opponents. This team is playing structured hockey. They don't panic under pressure, they protect the slot, compete physically, and stay disciplined in key moments. And at home, Vancouver are simply more effective. Their shooting efficiency jumps noticeably on their own ice, and the energy level is different. Seattle, on the other hand, are still struggling with consistency. They've won only 2 of their last 5 games. Offensively, they rely heavily on speed and quick zone entries, but the finishing hasn't been there. Too many chances die in the third period, and defensively, they allow too much space in transition. Against a well-organized team like Vancouver, that becomes a problem. Yes, Seattle have had some success in head-to-head matchups. Historically, they've won more meetings, but the most recent game matters more, and Vancouver just beat them in Seattle. That result shifts the balance. Another important point is motivation. Both teams are stuck in the lower half of the Western Conference, but Vancouver are at home and desperately need points. Every home game is a must-win spot for them, and they play like it. Seattle don't get the same edge on the road. Style-wise, this matchup favors goals. These teams don't play low-event hockey against each other. Their games usually open up, and 4 goals is almost the minimum. That's why the total over 3.5 makes a lot of sense again. So what's the best betting angle? The main pick is Vancouver to win. At odds around 2.35, that's clear value. If you want to boost it, Vancouver to win plus over 3.5 is a strong combo. A safer alternative is Vancouver team total under 4.5, which hits very consistently. Final score prediction: Vancouver wins 4-2 or 3-2. Home ice, better recent form, and stronger structure. That's why the edge is on the Canucks.
Let's break down Anaheim versus Minnesota. At first glance, the odds look almost even. Anaheim at home is around 2.4. Minnesota is right there too, just over 2.5. But when you dig into the form, this matchup isn't as close as it looks. Right now, Minnesota have the clear edge. Anaheim are in real trouble defensively. Over their last 5 games, they've won only once. And more importantly, they're leaking goals, a lot of them. More than 4 goals allowed per game on average. That's not bad luck, that's a system problem. They're losing battles in the neutral zone. They're slow getting back, and around their own net, coverage just breaks down. Even in games where Anaheim competes early, they struggle to hold structure for 60 minutes. 1 mistake turns into 2. 2 turns into a collapse. Minnesota, on the other hand, are trending up. They've won 3 of their last 5, including strong performances against Vegas and Winnipeg. The losses they've had came against elite teams, and even then, Minnesota didn't fall apart. This team plays balanced hockey. They roll 4 lines, keep the tempo high, and force opponents into rushed decisions. And that's exactly the type of pressure Anaheim don't handle well. Head-to-head history also favors Minnesota. In recent meetings, the Wild have won most of them, and they consistently score at least 2 goals against Anaheim. They're patient, they wait for mistakes, and Anaheim usually provides them. Motivation matters here too. Minnesota are fighting near the top of their conference. Every point counts. Anaheim is stuck in the middle, and their home ice hasn't helped lately. 4 losses in their last 5 at home says it all. From a tactical point of view, this game sets up nicely for the Wild. Expect Minnesota to control the pace, play physical through the middle, and punish Anaheim on counterattacks. Anaheim might get chances, but finishing has been inconsistent, especially early in games. So, what's the best bet? The main play is Minnesota to win. At odds around 2.51, that's solid value. If you want something safer, Minnesota team total over 1.5 goals is very reliable. It's hit in every recent head-to-head matchup. For higher risk, Minnesota win plus over 4.5 total goals is a strong combo. Final score prediction, Minnesota wins 3-1 or 4-2. Better form, better structure, and a much cleaner matchup on paper. That's why the value is on the Wild.